you, Professor Chakrabarty, for wake up everybody. So I hope I don't take too much of your time because you must be very tired. But still, the sporotrichosis is quite an interesting disease. And the history of the pathogens are pretty longer. Since the 1896, the Sporotrichosis was firstly isolated by Benjamin Schenck. So in the 1907, the first zoonotic human case from rat in Brazil were reported. In the 1960s, Howard confirmed its dimorphic nature, which means in the room temperature, the mold form production, and in the body temperature, the yeast form production, right? But as the development of the molecular identification method and the phylogenetic study, and nowadays the Sporotrichosis already comprises approximately 53 species, which including the Sporotrichosis brasiliensis and Sporotrichosis schenckii, as well as the Sporotrichosis globosa. These three species that are the most commonly isolated in the world. According to this molecular identification, we should notice that there is a very interesting epidemiology, the geographic distribution different. If we look at in the Brazil, the most dominant isolates are the brasiliensis, but in the Asia area, especially in China, most of the isolates, also in India, and the Sporotrichosis globosum was the most dominant one. While in the other part of the world, the Sporotrichosis schenckii distributed very widely, so it's including the Australia. So it's also the South Africa. So it's a quite interesting distribution. There are several outbreak reports. Like in China nowadays, already over 4,000 cases were documented, but there is a high endemic area in the northeastern part of China, and the farmer or people live in rural area was the major affected people, and the source of the infection may from the reeds, corn sticks, and the soil. But there is very, very few animal cases was recorded. And there's some outbreak in Australia too. You may see some cases report in a very short time, and including some hay supplier cases and some gardener and bushland injured by them. The outbreak in Brazil is quite different from the other part of the world, which are mainly related to the plants. But in the Brazil, both have the human cases and the animal cases too, including the dog and cats. And over 80% of the dogs and over 80% of the patients contacted with the cats. So 56 humans reported cat bites or scratches. Sporotrichosis in cats preceded occurrence among the owners. So the transmission of the sporotrichosis are quite interesting, and some from the plant materials, like I mentioned before, and some are from the animals, and some are from the soil. And also, very rare case, sometimes it's associated with the fire ant stings even. So it's quite dangerous to be careful. In China, there are some transmissions through the corn sticks, maybe the source of some infant outbreak. There is a small group of the infant happening through the 3 to 10 months, and over 70% are fixed type, and the location in the Jilin province. There is no history of trauma or contact of the animal, but maybe the contact with the corn sticks. So Dr. Feng Peiying summarized the update epidemiology in Asia. Most of the molecular identification results were the global Sporotrichosis globosa, with the very rare case of the Shinkiai, may related to the animal. And this is the molecular analysis. So the clinical manifestation, mainly including the cutaneous forms, which like the fixed cutaneous and the lymphocutaneous type, which took 0.5%, and very rare case with the disseminated cutaneous lesions. The extracutaneous forms are very rare, which usually including pulmonary, osteoarticular, and the meningitis, as well as the disseminated to the inner organs. These are the fixed type of the cutaneous form. These are the lymphocutaneous form, which usually seen in the extremities and on the face. In the case of the disseminated ones, mainly in some immunocompromised patients like alcoholics, diabetes, HIV infection, and the extracutaneous forms are in the right part. Here you can see the picture. However, it's interesting in the China, we found the location and type of the lesion in adult and children are some different. For example, in the children, extremity lesions are most a fixed type. This means maybe children receive more attention by the parents. So at the first beginning, they come to see the doctor. So it's usually the fixed type. But in the adults, the extremities are more lymphocutaneous form. The identification of the pathogens are not only through the morphology. Through morphology, it's difficult to get the exact species identification. The molecular method are recommended. Here we can see the different picture of the species. And also the Sporotrichosis transmission has the different characters, like I already say before. So if you look at the clinical features, we can see the Brasiliensis and the Shinkiai has the similar fixed form and lymphocutaneous form. However, in the case of the Brasiliensis and especially in the Shinkiai and the literature, you can see the Brasiliensis seems more virulent than the other species, which has the more disseminated type. So here you can see the virulence study. It seems the globosa has the lowest virulence, and Brasiliensis is the highest. And in the case of the Sporotrichosis Shinkiai, it seems the different virulence distribution. Okay, if we look at the laboratory examination, and through the direct examination, it's usually difficult to find the pathogen, as also difficult through the histopathology. It's very rare case you can see the budding cell in the tissue. However, the fungal culture is the most reliable method to get the pathogen. And quite recently, the fungal fluorescent stain, which by using the smear of the excrete or through the tissue, and you can get the pathogens through the fluorescent stain. And quite recently, if we look at the literature, there are a lot of molecular diagnostic methods. You may see mainly the PCR diagnostic method, which you can see the molecular identification of the pathogen seems very popular both in Brazil and in China. We use the molecular way try to identify to the species level. Here you can see some more study reported. And quite recently, the species-specific PCR and the qPCR seems very useful in the differentiation of the three normally isolated species. And in the left part, you can see the three different patterns of the Brasiliensis Schenckii, as well as the collaborator, and also in the right part, the qPCR can easily to differentiate the three species. And also people using the multi-TOF to make the exact identification of the species to the species level, and some people using the molecular typing by MLST plus the AFLP, which seems more complicated. And also people analyze the whole genome sequencing of globosa. Regards to the treatment and the guidelines from the IDS seems pretty earlier in the 2007, and quite in China we have also the Sporotrichosis guideline for the management and the diagnosis. And antifungal susceptibility testing, it seems the Schenckii, Brasiliensis, and globosa seems sensitive to itraconazole and posaconazole. Well, in the globosa case, we have limited isolates, and it's still changeable, so we need to enlarge the sample of the tested isolates. So if we look at the susceptibility to the common antifungal agents, we can see the most high susceptible are amphotericin B, itraconazole, posaconazole, as well as the terbinafine. However, quite recently, the resistant strains were also noticed. And the mechanism may related to overexpression of the influx pumps and the overexpression or mutations of the target enzyme. So the recommended treatment regimen, including the first choice, is itraconazole 200 to 400 milligram per day and divided into 2 doses. And also terbinafine is work well too, with the 250 to 500 milligram per day. However, these suggestions still need more evidence to support. Fluconazole also works, and if this single therapy didn't work well within 1 month, then we will combine using the combined therapy either with the itraconazole with terbinafine or with the other method like the somo therapy or PDT or surgical removal of the lesions. Then the treatment period through the 3 months to 6 months. So the other new antifungal agents appear now. The new triazoles may also be helpful, and the surgical removal of the lesion and the physical therapy and photodynamic therapy may also work, but it needs to combine with the chemical therapy. These are some examples of our case treated with single itraconazole after 3 months and single with itraconazole after 2 months, and treatment with the itraconazole combining the terbinafine also could be completely cured. Okay, I would like to stop my talk here. So because the sporotrichosis are a worldwide distributed disease, and it has the animal, human, and plant relationship, so transmission through. So this is the hotspots. We should combine together, try to control or even eliminate the sporotrichosis. Although the Sporotrichosis I was not listed as WHO list, however, it's tropical neglected disease by WHO, so we should pay more attention to this elimination of the disease. Okay, I would like to make a very short note, and there is an international training course in this coming October, the last week, which will hold by China and Netherlands. So the host of our course, Professor Cao and her group are here. If you are interested in the information, please contact them. Okay, I finish my talk here. Thank you so much. I'd like to take the question.